anything that we design, like, and that's probably with the nursing background is helpful because there's some things that my dad will be working on and like he'll tell me like, hey, so I'm working on like clamps for the IV lines. And I'm like, you know what, let's not, because I don't want them to clamp their own IV lines. I don't want them to think that's like something they can fidget and play with. So it is being very conscious about like the functionality being enough for it to be educational, but not too much where it's like encouraging them to go mess with their own stuff. But we actually found that kids like that get feedings, the parents said that they wanted to mess with their pump, or they have siblings that want to mess with it. But once they had the toy, it like redirected that behavior. They just want to be in control. So then having the toy, they're able to be in control and do the feed on their stuffies. And it's, kids, their language is play, and they deserve the right to play with things that represent their world. So if their world involves the medical system, then they deserve toys that replicate that.
Today, we welcome Mary Jenner to our podcast. She is a former pediatric oncology nurse turned entrepreneur who's helping reimagine how children experience healthcare. After years at the bedside, she founded a company focused on developing medically inclusive toys and devices that help kids with serious illnesses better understand and cope with their care through play. Mary, welcome to Bluestock Talk.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Awesome. Well, I have been following what you're doing on LinkedIn, and I appreciate that you responded to my message where I was like, oh my gosh, I would love to have you on the podcast. I hope you're not creeped out by me. But let's go into a little bit of your origin story and also how it led you to Butterfly Pig.
Absolutely. And gosh, my origin story, like where the whole idea for the company came to fruition, was when I was working as a pediatric oncology nurse. I was fresh out of nursing school, and there was a long-term patient on the unit, and it was my first time seeing her though, because she was quite complex. So I'd been working there for like 6 months. And I finally, they felt that I could take this patient on. And I remember in report, the nurse saying, get her labs before she wakes up. That's going to be the first thing, because she's really resistant to lab draws. And she had a PICC line, so there were no pokes or anything. But she also had graft versus host disease, so really sensitive skin. So I imagine the trauma around any messing with the PICC line, it caused her to be resistant to it. And we had child life, and they worked with her frequently. But I'm a new face. She's in contact precautions. So I come in a gown with a mask on, and she's awake. And I remember being like, darn it, like I lost my chance to get it while she's asleep. And she was like cowering already, holding her teddy bear. And I remember asking her, okay, do you want to put an IV in your teddy bear first? So it was like a way for me to like build trust with her. And it completely like changed the whole environment. She got a little excited. We put it in. She got all curious and started pretending to be the nurse. And I didn't really have, as a 22-year-old without kids, I didn't have like a natural playful bone in my body, I guess, yet. So it was pretending to be a nurse with her was easy for me. I could be like, yeah, this is exactly what I'm doing. And after that, she let me draw her labs. So it really was powerful from the nursing perspective, because putting an IV in a teddy bear isn't revolutionary. Child life does that. But as the nurse, being able to have that moment of connection, build that trust, lower the defenses, that was so powerful for me. And it turned something that would have taken 20 minutes in forced care and other scenarios to much quicker, even with taking the time to pause and play with her first. So then when I left the room, I had to take the syringe with me because I didn't want her attaching it to her own line. And that's when I really thought, why don't we have real medical toys like this? Toys we can leave with kids, toys that are safe. Like, we don't want them playing with real equipment. So that's where the whole idea came to fruition. And then it wasn't until mid-pandemic on maternity leave where I actually had the time and started dabbling in it and seeing how to make it happen. And it's just been one step at a time since.
That's amazing. Especially that way to connect with your patients, right? Like, I think there's a lot of folks that just either don't have the time or they're trying to rush to the next thing. And so, yeah, really getting them comfortable with the technology is so important. So
great. Yeah.
So what were some of the first things that you built, and what was, is there an order to where you are now? Because I feel like there's so many cool products that you've made.
Yeah.
And I hope people go check out the website as well, because it's so exciting to see uh, the toys, right? The toys that these kids are able to experience.
Right. And the first ones we made were actually, it was out of clay. It was like before I was calling these toys even. It was talking to parents and them wanting a hearing aid for their child's doll that matched their daughter's hearing aid exactly. And like it with clay, it was really fun because I could mold it exactly to what model they had. And like, if you've seen pediatric hearing aids, like even the part that goes in the ear can be like multicolored and swirled. So I would paint it exactly like that. So it was very special and fun, but I was spending like 3 to 4 hours on like a $10 pair of toy hearing aids, and it was just not you couldn't do that at scale. So it was fun, but then I started getting more requests. Okay, I want G tubes. I want a trach. I want a G tube that opens, an insulin pump. And I realized very quickly, okay, we need real toys that are actually like toy certified. And at the time I like spent $100 on the American toy standards for American standards for toy manufacturing. And I think it's ridiculous that those are like gate kept behind a paywall, but I remember paying for that and then investing in a 3D printer and just going down the rabbit hole. So then the first 3D printed one, I believe, was a G tube. So we had a G tube. It wasn't be able to be opened yet. It was just like a little model G tube that could be glued on. And then iteration by iteration, it would get better. We'd create a pass for a needle so you could sew it on. And then we found the materials so we can make it, you can actually open. So it was just continually having conversations with families and like child life specialists saying, what are you finding yourself making all the time? And what can we make to help your job easier? So that is now to answer your question about like how we decide going forward, it's all by request. So it's families sending in requests. We have a whole spreadsheet and we try to prioritize what's most popularly requested. It's child life teams making requests. Like our glucometer kit was for a child life team that gives them out to every newly diagnosed child with diabetes. And then medical device companies too. So I just spoke to one where they see how beneficial this is for kids. And even though it's not going to help them with their market share or sales, they want to do what's right is what the terms they were using. Like they just see that this is so impactful and they want to be a part of something good.
Love that. And so part of what Blue Stocking Health is trying to do is getting people to talk more about med tech and getting people to understand the benefits for a lot of these technologies. So it's nice to hear that the med tech companies, the medical device manufacturers are also on board and saying
Yeah.
this is something that's positive, because I see the value to this. I think it's also maybe and maybe a question to you, is it as much for the kids as it is for the parents? Like sometimes the parents might not fully understand what their kid's about to experience.
Yeah. We get a lot of adults, even if they don't have kids, adults with medical trauma where they say even just looking at like a syringe gives them that nervous system fight or flight response, but they've been able to watch our videos and it feels safe because there's that distance. So it's the just knowing it's like a toy, even though it's a realistic toy, it's safer. So we have adults with their own trauma using it. We have parents that while they're sitting there getting the education on a child friendly level, it's easier to internalize. So there's parents that are more involved in preparation and are actually seeking out that I've had adults say that like they want to be taught in this way. Like because otherwise like we in healthcare, we don't know what big words we're using. Like we don't naturally speak on like the 5th grade reading level, but like when we're talking to our patients, we need to try that. And toys kind of force you into that. So it is like a really beautiful way to like provide better patient education.
Magical. Very, very cool. So let's double click. I always hate it when people say that, but let's double click on the trauma
Yeah.
um, that you just mentioned, because I know you're part of the Innovative Care Institute and you've launched a podcast. And so there's like almost a separate door that this toy company has kind of opened to a bigger conversation. So can you talk to us a little bit about that?
Yeah, gosh, in the past 6 years of having the company now, I've talked to hundreds of families and clinicians, and it's made it so clear, like, where we have all these gaps. And like, there's also so many people in this world that are doing wonderful things to make care less traumatic. I can't tell you how many hospitals they've spoken to that are each, they're working on their own protocol to make pediatric IV starts less traumatic, but they're all doing it in silos. So everybody's just reinventing the wheel. And we need a better way to work together. So like we can share what one facility is doing, how it has worked, and then others can use that data to build their own and change it slightly and test their own hypothesis around it. And so that's the whole idea behind it, is creating this network where we all work together. And medical trauma is still, it's like kind of newer. Like we know it exists and we have child life to help with it for pediatrics. But then beyond that, it's like just now getting into the conversation of like everyone else's role in it. Because as a nurse, you're in that room hundreds, if not thousands of times throughout your shift. And every little moment matters, like how you carry yourself, your tone of voice, your body language. Like there's so many things that we don't think about that affects what trauma and what experience somebody walks away with. So those are the conversations that we're trying to introduce now, is we can't try to push the entire burden of like emotional safety and trauma onto one role. Like we all need to recognize our own parts in it and what we can do to work together to prevent it.
That's an amazing conversation to have. So, how are you? So, I know the podcast is one of the things that you're able to point people to. What are some of the conversations that you're looking to have with parents, kids, caregivers? Like, it seems like it's the whole spectrum of care.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's conversations around anything that we see as like a small moment. So, like, it's easy to say, okay, we want every procedure to be less traumatic, but that just is, it's too big and too overwhelming. We need to look at individual scenarios. So, like, in our Facebook group with families and clinicians in it, we want families to feel safe enough to say, hey, this happened today. I was I was getting routine vaccinations for my child. She flipped out. We ended up holding her down. Like, what can we do in other scenarios? And then talking collaboratively as clinicians too, and learning what the family experienced, what was traumatic for them. Because often as clinicians, we might not realize something elicited trauma because it's a very personal thing. Even what a nurse walks away with versus a child life specialist, like the nurse might not, and you have different opinions on what's traumatic. And so it's really just having an open, shame-free, blame-free conversation and trying to figure out what we can do to prevent those things from happening again in the future. And I've had like people share in the past, like in this scenario with the vaccines, an adult was talking about how they had a very traumatic experience where they were she did not want to get her vaccines. They ended up saying, you know what, let's take a pause and we'll come back. So they took her home. She didn't get the vaccines that day. They did more preparation. She came back and she said that she sat through it and was completely fine. She sat on her dad's lap. She understood what was happening. So it's hard because when you're in those moments, you're like, no, we have to get it done. You're here now. Let's just get the
Right.
vaccine in. But it's okay to pause and be like, you know what? Maybe for emotional safety's sake, let's take a breather and let's prepare more. Or, there's other things we can do to make it less traumatic.
Yeah. And I feel like I watched that real time with getting my daughters vaccinated. We got the flu shots last year, and I watched a little kid that the mother was just beside herself. She's almost crying. The kid's screaming in tears, and she's like, "We have to get this for
Yeah.
you," or whatever. I don't know what shot they were in for, but I was like, this is that kid is not walking away with a good experience with
Right.
that.
And then it affects every experience going forward.
Right,
And
right.
there's like so many adults I've talked to too that say like they know internally they're safe and they want to be fine with like blood draws or injections, but when they get in, their body just melts down or they faint, or because we're not in control of our brain isn't in control of our body when we have traumatic experiences.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And I see a lot of what's gives me some optimism, as well as the companies that are really focusing on trying to reduce fear and reduce that trauma. Like I was watching a video of this company called Smiley Scope, right? And they have like a VR headset, and if kids getting a blood draw, or the Buzzy. I did like a little video about this like little,
Yeah,
and it's like a little ladybug, and it
I was
just,
gonna bring that up just
yeah.
now.
Like
I love the Buzzy.
we do too. I mean, and it was great because we took the Buzzy in with us to go get our shots, and the girls, I have two daughters, and they love them. And they also, like, the nurse was like, "Oh, I'm so glad you brought your Buzzy." And she's like, every
Yeah,
time someone brings it in, it makes my job so much easier. And so it is, yeah, like I think ultimately you get better care when there's less trauma involved, and there's also, it goes faster for everyone as well. Like that day
right.
we were in and out and my littlest one was just, I have my Buzzy with me, or, like, and we walked through what she was going to experience before we
Yeah,
went in. So
I know that's where like I've heard stories of mostly in the past, but maybe it's still happening of like parents not even wanting to tell their kids that they're on their way to the doctor because they
yeah,
don't want to deal with
that
that.
was
And
me.
so like
Yeah,
yeah, so
well,
it's
my
hard.
mom never told me.
Yeah.
So like, because I would flip out. Yeah, she's like, wasn't
I
worth it.
know. So that's where it's like it is so it's hard because like even as parents we don't know the right thing. We don't know what to do. So that's like these conversations we need to have. And like the fact you have your own Buzzy is amazing because our pediatrician office they have one, but you have to ask for it. So it's like
Interesting.
we're
Yeah,
growing. Like it's great that you have one, and then if your facility has one, it's great they have it, but then where's like the standard of care? They're like, no, actually, if you educate them prior and they have proper distraction and you have the Buzzy and maybe you even have like numbing cream or numbing spray, like you can make it pain free. My daughter's last shot, she literally didn't know we did it because we had all of that going on. And she goes, you know what? I don't, after we did it, you know what, Mom? I'm a little scared. I don't know if I want it. And I said, oh, we're done. Like, we did it. She was like, oh, okay.
wow. Like, we're
Like,
out of
we're,
here, kid. Let's go get
yeah,
that cake pop. That's what every shot we get cake pops afterwards. So it's like,
wonderful. I love it.
and I think that's it resonates moving forward, right? Like, or the ripple effect as you become an adult, and then you have fear or anxiety around it. We see a lot of people that don't go in and get care, right? Like they're just like, ugh, it's just going to be scary, or there's not going to be, I'm going to get treated how I was. We go back to that 5-year-old version of ourselves, and then you wait too long, right? And I think we saw that especially during COVID, and then after, where people weren't getting things checked out that they should have, and they should have, not waited.
I worked in adult oncology for a while, and it was the clinic settings more like case management. So these were like my long-term patients that I followed. And it was really heartbreaking where they would come in through our ER with like even external visible massive tumors, but they just delayed until the last moment possible. And that's like the effect that we don't see of medical trauma and we don't know how big it is because the people with the most medical trauma aren't in the system. They're avoiding care entirely.
Yeah.
So it's terrible.
Yeah. And ultimately that ends up being, I mean, not that it always comes back to economics, but it does come back, like, those are extremely expensive cases then to take care of, right?
Yeah.
If you wait
Hmm.
too long. So
Yeah.
yeah.
That's
So
a big part of the conversation we're trying to have is helping hospitals recognize the cost of medical trauma because right now, since you can't tie it to individual line items, it's hard to
yeah.
justify like prioritizing child life and emotional safety because they don't see exactly how it's going to save them money. But like the top children's hospitals happen to have child life specialists, like so there's stuff we can look at and see, like even though we can't directly tie it and see, like you know that it's costing the healthcare system so much.
Yeah. And so you keep saying child life system, but unpack that a lot. I don't know. I'm not familiar with the term.
Yes. Sorry about that. I know in
No,
other
I'm
places,
curious.
yeah. So not every facility has it. Most children's hospitals do, or like level 1 trauma centers, but um child life, they are the specialists in emotional safety and preventing trauma for kids. So it is where they are educated in like a child's development and being able to assess while a child is playing and figure out like what they're ready to hear, the type of language to use, and even different types of play that might help. Like they are kind of experts in that, in being able to observe and assess and heal emotional harm through play. So it's a quite underfunded department, but there are facilities like the top children's hospitals that have really robust departments, and you see a lot of other healthcare things like it's not studied, but like those hospitals also say like nurse retention is better, and I think it can all be related to hospitals that are prioritizing emotional safety. Like all these things follow. So yeah, I don't know if is that a good explanation? I
Yeah,
don't know
no,
if I
that's
need
excellent.
it.
I mean, especially I think we had another conversation with another person who was on this podcast just about the safety of the healthcare providers, right? So the nurses and physicians, and how making sure that patients feel safe and heard and seen can also reduce the harm that befalls a lot of the healthcare providers.
Yes.
So that makes a lot of sense what you just
No,
connected of like
absolutely.
it's an ecosystem, right?
Right. And on that note, like there's studies like showing that nurses have that transient empathic blindness where like when you're in the moment, like you suppress your empathy just to get the job done. And it's not something you consciously do. Your brain just does it on autopilot and it creates hierarchies for you. It's like we need to get the IV in first, and then the child's emotional safety and psychological comfort that comes after. Like that's what happens when we're in survival mode. So that's where it really, and when you do that, in retrospect, when your nervous system's calm again, you're like, wow, that felt really terrible. And I remember like in nursing, when you tell people you're a nurse so often, they're like, oh, thank you so much for what you do. And I would feel like shame around it a lot. And I just like, I didn't like it. I was like, don't thank me. It was like a
Yeah.
weird thing. And I left bedside nursing. No wonder.
Well, I think there's so much good. I mean, I've seen a lot of folks that have left either their medical position or being at the bedside, but the work that they're doing now with that as part of who they are and built into the fabric of like their career growth has been so valuable, right? Like you have that experience and that can pay
Yeah.
forward. So
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
cool.
Trying to
Yeah.
make the world better for those that come after us, right?
Oh, so true. I know. I kept saying, someone asked me recently, what would be the name of your, what was it, like your autobiography or something? And I said, probably like living the campsite rule. Of,
Yeah.
like, leaving it a better place than when I showed up. So
Yeah, exactly.
yeah. So all right. Well, one other question. I always have to ask this of everybody. What is a medical device or technology that impacted you or benefited your life or someone that you love?
The one that was absolutely the most impactful saved my daughter's life, my youngest daughter. Um, she, I guess to spare all the details, she was born with severe hypoxia. It was like a traumatic birth, and she had the HIE, where it's like hypoxic ischemic encephalopathy. And when it's moderate or severe, they qualify for cooling therapy or hypothermic cooling. So it brings her body temperature, I think it was down to 32 degrees Celsius for 3 full days. So not every hospital has this. And I think it's new within the past 15 years or so. And our hospital we were at is one of the first locations that had it. So you need to start it within like the first 6 hours of birth. And when that happened, they immediately brought her up there. And I think it was within an hour or two, they wrapped the cooling blanket around her, and it protects the brain. So ideally, it won't have as lasting brain injury symptoms. And I it was crazy to see. It's this just a simple little blanket, but it's this giant machine, and there's a temperature probe that goes rectally. So it is constantly monitoring her temperature and adjusting the blanket's temperature to make sure that she stays
Wow.
in that. And then she had a continuous EEG on at the time too. So you're at high risk for seizures during the cooling and then the rewarming process. So that device completely saved her life because even though she had severe hypoxia and moderate HIE, she's almost 2 and you would not never know. Like it's the outcomes are different for everybody, but it's the science behind it shows that it really reduces impacts. And I feel like we're best case scenario, and I couldn't be more grateful for it.
Oh my gosh, that's an amazing story. Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah.
I feel like hypothermia care has come a long way because I think even within the last decade, there was a lot of stuff that was like, oh, we don't really know. Like it
Mhm.
seems like voodoo science or, like how can that be real? And it's like, I mean, when you think about all the animals that, when there's a winter freeze and then they
Yeah.
just slow their metabolism down, everything slows down. I'm like, it kind of makes sense. Like you don't want to,
Yeah.
freeze the person to death, but you
And that
also want to slow everything down to give it time to heal.
like crazy thinking about like who came up with the idea and even like did the initial tests, like probably on animals, but like just like I don't even that thought process to come up with something as crazy as that, like that, it's amazing. It's like it's yeah, I'm every new technology I see that's coming out is just like I get so excited and geek out about. So
Me
I
too.
love that you have this podcast.
Me too. It's like living my dream when I get to see cool stuff like that.
Have you seen it kind of related? Have you seen there's someone I follow on LinkedIn and their company makes skin skin incubators, but I think it's skin incubators. So like for
That's a
NICU
clever name
babies.
too. I'm writing it down.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh
Okay.
my gosh. And it's because when your baby is in the NICU and they need to be like temperature controlled, you can't do skin to skin normally. So it allows the parent to do skin to skin or caregiver, whoever is, and then the skin incubators over them. So it's like allowing skin to skin when they're like these tiny beings. And I think it's every time I see a picture of that on LinkedIn, I get full body goosebumps. I have them
Oh
now.
my God. Okay, I'm going. That's like right after we hang up, I'm going
Yeah.
watch some videos. Like there are some some of these devices that you see on even just YouTube videos of kids getting their cochlear implants for the first time or babies having these amazing recoveries and that. It's just like, oh my gosh, there are times when I'm like, I need a good cry. I'm going to go and
Yeah.
like watch one of these videos and
Yep. I
get some
know.
tears out. So
Yeah.
skincubators, I'm looking it up. Okay. So speaking of cool devices, what are some of the like maybe your top fave toy devices that you've made and why?
You know, I probably have different favorites than the public. Like, I think our most popular ones are like the ones that go on the IV pole, like the feeding pump with the bag and the G tube or the
Yeah.
infusion pump and all that. But like, I like our scope because it's like an endoscopy scope. So it has like this little machine with like a cartoon, like, the picture of it is like, it could be like an intestine or whatever. And the actual, have you seen a real scope in person? Like the black scopes
Yes.
with the long cord. And then
Yeah.
the end has the camera. We put a tiny rhinestone on the end. So like that one's my favorite because it just like,
So cool.
it looks like a little scope. I'm obsessed with that one. Um, and the CT scanner is cool too. The CT scanner, because it's bigger and it has like a QR code. So if you're prepping for an MRI, you can at least scan the QR code and get the sound since that's the scariest part. And then they can still kind of use the CT as like the actual hands-on play.
Oh, that's really cool. Yeah, because that is I've been in an MRI before and the sound, the noise can be really terrifying. If I were a little kid, I wouldn't know what the heck's going on. It
I
sounds,
know.
yeah.
Yeah.
And you really need to be still, right? Like you need to be like,
Yes.
okay, it's going to be scary. There's going to be loud noises, but you have to be really still. So,
I know. And that our toy has like the Velcro straps on it too. Cause often with kids, they do wrap them. So it is, it's conscious about like when you're prepping a kid on what to expect, like they can play with that and realize, okay, so I'm going to be strapped down. Like it's not like all of a sudden you're like, whoa, what's happening? Like you already processed it and played it out.
yeah. Oh, that's so valuable. So what's I mean, the other thing that I was thinking of for use of the toys, and I've seen them that you can experience them maybe even in a waiting room or, like it's not necessarily bedside, but I wonder if there's a benefit too for kids who are going to see their parent or a loved one that's going to be, I guess like even the IV poles, like they're going to be hooked up to these things. This is what that means.
Yeah. And I remember being a kid going in the hospital when my dad was, he had like a kidney stone. And I remember going in and seeing all the EKG leads on him. And I remember thinking that those were going inside his body. So it's like the conclusions kids come to, it's because you don't know. And if they aren't told ahead of time, they draw their own conclusions. So when my youngest was in the NICU, and I, even with like working in this world, I was not mentally there for my older daughter to prep her or anything. I was just like in survival mode and I didn't care. I remember her coming in and thinking she was going to react like everybody else. Like all the adults had grief and were scared and like didn't know what to say. But my 4.5-year-old walked in and she was stoked because she recognized the devices from our toys. She said, "Hey, that's like your toy CPAP." Like she had these words and I'm like, what vocabulary? Like, and so
Yeah.
it's like kids being able to just be familiarized with it in a safe way. And once they actually see it in person, they just have that like foundation, that natural understanding that it's not this unknown thing. It's, oh, okay, this is just is what it is. So yeah, it
Yeah,
definitely, I
it's
think
like empowering them, right? To say, "Oh, this is not
yeah,
something that's scary. This is something
right,
that's healing or that's helping." So,
right. And it gives them, since kids often don't have words for these like complex feelings, like even if their parent went through something medically significant and then the kid has the toys, just observing them play, you'll hear like what they think, like, oh, this is really, this part's going to be really scary, or the way they prepare their stuffed animals is just so eye-opening and to like how their brain works and like what's scary for them.
right, because what's scary for them might be totally not what we expect, right? As you said, like the EKGs, you thought they were like going into his body, where it's like the needle that's, like
Yes.
certain things. You're like, that's not scary. Okay, yeah.
Yep.
So interesting. So I'm sure there are some folks that would say like, "Oh, you shouldn't be making toys out of these. These aren't toys." What is your response to that? Because I, I know that they can't get hooked up, or they, like
Mhm.
as you said, like you had to take the in that first experience, you had to take them out of the room. But what are some of the ways that you've protected kids from using these, like incorrectly?
Yeah,
Yeah.
anything that we design, like, and that's probably with the nursing background is helpful because there's some things that my dad will be working on and like he'll tell me like, "Hey, so I'm working on like clamps for the IV lines." And I'm like, "You know what? Let's not, because I don't want them to clamp their own IV lines. I don't want them to think that's like something they can fidget and play with." So it is being very conscious about like the functionality being enough for it to be educational, but not too much where it's like encouraging them to go mess with their own stuff. But we actually found that kids like that get feedings, the parents said that they wanted to mess with their pump, or they have siblings that want to mess with it. But once they had the toy, it like redirected that behavior. They just want to be in control. So then having the toy, they're able to be in control and do the feed on their stuffies. And it's, kids, their language is play, and they deserve the right to play with things that represent their world. So if their world involves the medical system, then they deserve toys that replicate that.
Oh, I love that. Yes, 100%. Especially because we're all patients. I always kind of think we either start in a hospital, end in a hospital, we're going to be in a hospital at some point, we're going to interact with medical technology at some point. And it's so easy just to think of, well, this is how I would interact with it. But especially if you're taking care of a loved one, or especially our most vulnerable population being kids, like how do I try and understand what my child is experiencing and reduce that trauma, make it a more positive experience? Because you're probably not there for great reasons, right? You're not you're not there because um, it's Disneyland. It's no, it there might be something that is a little scary, and how do you remove that fear?
Right. Yeah, absolutely.
This has been so eye-opening, as I've been following you and doing all the, seeing what you're posting and what you're building. I just love it so much, and I really appreciate what you're doing. So thank
Yeah,
you.
you as well. I'm excited to continue listening to your podcast.
Yeah,
It's
thank
fun.
you. It's all about how can we just get more people talking about med tech, and I think what you're doing is perfectly in parallel with what I'm building. So thank you.
Yeah. Yeah, of course.
Awesome.
Thank
All
you for
right.
having
Have
me
a
on.
great rest of your day, and thanks so much for joining us.